enterprise partner at SPM Professionals. Hello, Paul, and welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning, madam, and thank you so very much for having me.
Let's get started. Let me get your own perspectives around the state of the economy right now. So many things to talk about. What are the major high points? Is it really high points? Okay, let me say high points, then low points for you.
Well, quite a number of interesting things are happening, and also some things that we may need to consider. As we speak, inflation, one of the major economic indicators, is still increasing now at a reducing rate at 17.01%. We're yet to receive new updates on what unemployment is. We might still need to stay with the last figure above 30%. GDP grew by above 5%. But of course, that was because we compared it with a negative base, which was like 6%. So still very mixed. In the word of Central Bank Governor, during the MPC report, he has said that we have mixed inflation feelers, because when you look at that, you really look at month on month, it increased by 1%, but year on year, it increased at a reducing rate of 17.01%. Another thing that's also interesting is that good decision taking by Monetary Policy Committee, which of course is to hold rates, talking about NPR, CRR, and also liquidity ratio at 11.5, 27.5, and 30% respectively. So another point of worry now is loans that government is requesting for a fresh loan, which also, when you look at it on both sides, when it comes, is going to boost foreign reserves significantly. But the impact of loan, which is that increased at average of 20% on the average in the last 5 years, compared to economic growth on the average at less than 2%, then you know that the worry is huge and the concerns are tremendous.
Okay, since you've talked about inflation, I asked you a question, and I really want to get that before I dig deeper into the inflation analysis you gave. I did ask what your high point is and what your low point is. Should I take it that the moderation in inflation is a high point for you?
Yes, moderation in inflation, I want to take it as my high point for me, and also the jump we saw in the growth, even though the base year is the weakest in recent history, but it's still a positive growth that we may want to see as counted for us. But the low point remains new loans that we are looking for. I'm really concerned that authority may need to rethink alternative way of financing this economy. One of the things that is also, you might never call it high or low, is who we collect VAT. Will it be federal government or state government? And to whose advantage will it be? I worry because 30 states today are living on subsidy. A lot of states are living on subsidy without the subsidy coming from federal government. The truth is that capacity to run those states will become very, very disturbing. But fortunately, the states with stronger power who feels that they can work their state and figure it out are saying, hey, you cannot continue to help us to collect what belongs to us. Let all of us get to the ring. Let's get dirty, roll our trousers and sleeves, and get our state in order.
Okay, let's dig deep into the inflation analysis you made earlier. There's a moderation in inflation, but of course the range is still high at 17%. We have runaway inflation in Nigeria compared to other African parts. If you take a look at what are the determinants of this inflation, perhaps on the food inflation side, you see high price of cereal, bread, milk, cheese, oil and fats, meat, and all of that. Since we know that every month we see this data, isn't it best for us to find a solution to these ranges of foods, the production of these ranges of foods, so that food inflation can come down, thereby not, affecting the full index, the headline inflation? Paul, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I totally understand you, and I can tell you that government today is also trying best possible to see how inflation, particularly food inflation, could come down. But unfortunately, the truth is that government is beyond wearing babariga and wearing nice suits. It has to do with being on the street. And I can tell you that as opportunity continues to show in food production and now people get involved in food, when you talk of cereal and you talk of other requirements that Nigerians consume, one of the things that comes to mind is that some of these food we consume are processed. So at what point has inflation added to it? So running the analysis, is the inability of farmers to go to farm as a result of insecurity that we have majorly in the northern belt, namely northwest, northeast, and north central, or the one we have in southeast, or some part of southwest and south-south? Is that the reason why food inflation continues to increase? Or should we say inability of those processing the food in Nigeria to have access to power even when new plants are formed? Distribution companies are frustrating efforts of those who are producers? Or should we also say because exchange rate is relatively not available until recently, the central bank through in the monetary policy committee said they will no longer sell to BDC, and when these people affect this FX, they will then be able to import either capital equipment or inputs that are not available in Nigeria for them to produce. The challenges are enormous, and authority must sit to analyze and look at where they need to intervene. Until this is done, as long as we are having I beg your pardon, as long as we're having parallel market selling dollars at a gap and people cannot go to the bank to access ASAP and they are still patronizing, the truth is this will reflect in the bottom line. Number two, inflation cut across the entire federation and all the sectors. So even though some sectors report low and some report high, but it will still average all over. And I can tell you this, even though you are producing food, cereal, but the sector producing plastic, the price has increased, it will still have impact on what the price of cereal will be. Look at also sugar. Quite a number of things that we can talk about. But for me and for organization, we feel authority should engage more by looking into food inflation. Security is a major challenge. Logistics and transfer from one place to another is also a major challenge. And they should look at all of those, then see which one comes first and which one comes after that. Then we can start solving this problem one after the other. Should also be the issue of labor. How many people are willing to go to farm? And I have advised authority. We have over 200,000 core members, most of which has to go and teach in anti-part nursery and primary school, quote and unquote. And so if we truly want to crash food inflation, if we want to crash prices of food, why can't we organize, and this is not short term by the way, it's medium term, why can't we organize our farms? Create organized farms for coppers, provide security for them across the regions, and because that's where they are truly serving the country, in my own opinion, and we can have excess supply of food because the law of economic demand and supply we still hold. When excess supply of food, because we have regular supply of coppers on farms, and when I say farm, I don't mean and cutler farm, I mean mechanized farm, and we get serious about it. That naturally we attract more investors in processing and manufacturing because they are now sure that supply of input is available in Nigeria. Then we can say food will no longer be a thing of concern in the near future.
The question you should also ask is that an average Nigerian copper now, will that copper want to go and farm? Perhaps that's an issue for another day. Because
company service is mandatory. It is not what you think you want to do. If government guarantees life and property of these coppers, and we make the place presentable, a medical doctor is needed on farm as a farm doctor. A presenter is needed on farm as an entertainer. When they build this farm and make them community, in the First Republic, for God's sake, we have this in place. That was why food was not a thing of concern. When you look at the north and you see Granite Pyramid, it was because there was organized structure farm, not individual farmers just farming at their backyard. As we are promoting in recent times, that you can just farm at the father, look at one plot of land, all of those things are pleasant. For us to compete in terms of agriculture with the rest of the globe, we must organize this and take agriculture as a business, not as something of convenience or as a part-time work. When you take it as part-time work, you will see part-time results. People will not be attracted into farming. And I am sorry and I'm afraid, those that are planning for us today are becoming aged. All of us want to sit with our suit and tie, with laptops and so on and so forth. But the good news in agriculture, even those that can fly a drone can farm today because technology has now been introduced. Who else do we then need other than those that are graduates of polytechnic of university, that have fair level of education, that can help and can also relate to the community? And when they leave, some of them will remain farmers for life because going out there to look for jobs may not just be attractive to them anymore.
I don't know if you saw the report that was released by NBS yesterday, and let me quickly take a look at it. In case you've not seen it, let me just quickly read it to you. According to the NBS and the UNDP Nigeria, I did take it earlier on during the news, that 20% of the full-time workforce in Nigeria lost employment during the COVID-19 pandemic last year. That is from UNDP Nigeria and National Bureau of Statistics. That's 20% of full-time workforce in Nigeria lost their jobs last year. What can you really make of this? 81% of enterprises, let me just go further, 81% of enterprises interviewed experienced a decline in revenue, and 23% stated that they faced liquidity challenges due to secondary impacts of COVID-19 last year. What's your view, Paul?
Well, the result of all of this will make us to get entrenched in holding the backing of the poorest nation, not in Africa, but in the world. When COVID-19 continues to hold sway, as it battles with health of many people, while the world and Nigeria is trying to improve on vaccination, economic impact are the landmarks or the marks it has left on the minds of many nations and on the economy. And poverty is what has left on the economy of many nations, particularly developing nations. And I can use Nigeria for it. What came to my mind is, imagine if government had not intervened through central bank at all. If that intervention had not come at all, it should have been worse off than what we have now. But for what we have is even worse. It's bad enough that we have these figures. So for me, the report has already been shared, which is fine, gave us fair knowledge of what is happening. What we should be looking at is how do we protect people from extreme poverty? Because the World Bank report shows that 5 million people were thrown into extreme poverty during COVID-19. Extra were thrown into extreme poverty. We have quite a number of people there. Meanwhile, Mr. President is looking at how to bring 10 million people out of extreme poverty. But we had 5 million people net, what is huge concern. So I strongly believe that we need to find ways of making policies, of changing our structural transformation in building prosperity, and not just for the elite, but for the entire Nigerian, so that we can continue to reduce, report here by UNDP, about over 80 million people living under multidimensional poverty, and that figure is still very relevant even today.
When you brought in the issue of the president saying that he wants to pull out 100 million people out of poverty within, I think he said it was last year or so, within that time.
2019.
Yeah, 2019 till 2029. Yes. Yeah. So it's like almost 2 years gone now. I also know that earlier this year, I think sometime in June, he did say that he has pulled just close to, is it 1 million or how many people out of poverty? But where I'm actually driving to is what you said now, with the World Bank saying that 7 million people were plunged into poverty last year, and the president wants to pull, let me say with that statistics, let's say 10 million people out of poverty every year. So if you do the mathematics there, we have more people in poverty than those that have been pulled out of poverty, as it were. And inflation is not really, is biting into the pockets of Nigerians. Do you think that this government will still be on track in terms of pulling out people out of poverty?
Well, I believe any government can pull people out of poverty, but are we pushing people out of poverty sufficient enough this moment today? I doubt, because reports which are not my reports. Reports available by National Bureau of Statistics, World Bank, IMF, UNDP. All these reports shows that rather than our people taking their legs from the sea of poverty, rather we are dragging them in the bottomless pit of poverty, perhaps as a result of unpreparedness on the part of policymakers, or because of harsh policy in some instances, because of continuous inflation, as naira gets devalued and their disposable income remains the same, they continue to. But what should government do to take people out of poverty? Quite a number of things I think we can do. Our solutions are in our problem. Just yesterday, about 40 million pupils resumed schools. School uniform they will wear will come from outside Nigeria, which will be evident in our production coming from India, coming from China, and coming from East London. But unfortunately, less than 10% of those clothes are going to be made in and what Nigerians will make. So the fabrics, of course, we have tailor that we sold here, but the fabrics are coming outside Nigeria. How do we revive an industry that has capacity of employing 2 million people, with evidence in what Kaduna was as a 1956 or 1958, when Kaduna was the pride of the entire West Africa in terms of fabric production, textile industry, I beg your pardon. Kaduna was the pride of not just Africa but the entire West Africa. Today, the place is a shadow of itself, even though one of the former governors, that sector produced him, but in his state, while he was governor, I'm afraid nothing of such revival came up under his watch. So you need to go back into manufacturing, because what we do today is primary. Crude oil is primary. It has the work of nature in it. Agriculture is primary. Until we are able to transfer our primary sector, which is crude oil agriculture, to secondary and to tertiary. And when I say secondary, we cannot sandwich manufacturing and processing. There is no country that has done that and have succeeded at that. China had more population than us. In about 10 years, lift our entire population, Nigerian population, out of poverty within 10 to 20 years. Our challenge is we want the result, but we don't want the process. And it's the process that we must follow. Moving people out of poverty is not rocket science. Most countries that are developed today were once poor. But they look beyond their religion, they look beyond their ethnicity, they look beyond their location. They are great to develop their country. Make policy, even though sometimes we're tough, but today those countries became more desirable places for people to live in. And this is what I will leave with. Mention a country, and those that are making policy and people watching this program as I speak, mention one country that you want to spend your holiday and there is no light, or you have the kind of light in Nigeria there, and you said you want to go and that doesn't work for a long time. I can tell you more than 90% we choose countries that power is relatively constant, and that is the reality of it. This is what we must work.
Paul,
with you.
Yes, as we end the program, I really want to talk about, because I did ask you earlier about the NBS report that we saw yesterday with the UNDP Nigeria, talking about COVID making people lose their jobs. I want us to look at COVID as we close this program, COVID-19, and perhaps the threat of the Delta variant and perhaps other variants that are still here now, or even will still come up eventually, God forbid. But the aspect of vaccine hesitancy, Nigeria has been able to vaccinate perhaps about 1.something% of its population. I don't know if you have been vaccinated, but I have been vaccinated, and I've taken the 2 doses of vaccination. I'm proud to say it. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around vaccination. No, don't take COVID-19 vaccine and all of that. How important is it for Nigerians to, how important is it for Nigerians to be able to take their vaccines right now? How important is it?
I think government may need to change strategy in getting Nigerians vaccinated. They need to talk to head of organizations and partner with them in order for these people to get, those that are even employed, our working population, to get vaccinated. And also need to work with our head of school so that parents also get vaccinated. Government needs to become a bit more innovative. Rather than expecting people to go out to be vaccinated, they may roll it out and go to homes of people. Yes, it's a bit more stressful, but in the process, we even create jobs, and I think this is the direction to go, so that before the end of the year, we can boost 1% to about 10%, and before the end of next year, we can be looking at vaccinating half of our population. But people who have lost jobs, they're in search of jobs, those that are jobs are also looking at how to protect their job. We're saying they should lead and take vaccines, which is important and correct, but these people are also watching on social media all manner of negative testimonies that are going on. I think government will also need to play more within that space to show those, to prevent those who have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and nothing has happened to them. But while that is going on, we must also remind Nigerians that non-pharmaceutical interventions, the use of face masks, washing of hands in soap and water, maintaining social distance, among other things that have been said by NCDC, as well as World Health Organization, are the observations that we must have as COVID-19 still ravages nation and the presence of Delta variant that is also going around countries.
Like the IMF chief did say, Kristalina Georgieva, some time ago, that vaccine policy is economic policy, because it depends on how many people you are able to vaccinate. Then you are protected. Your economy at least will not suffer. There won't be a threat of lockdown or even people dying. These days you just hear people are just dying. This person is dying. This person is dying. You really don't know. But when they tell you, oh, these are the symptoms, you're just like, oh, okay, it could be COVID. So I just hope that, I know there's been a lot of conspiracy theory, but like I said earlier, I have taken the vaccine, and I'm coming out on TV to say I have taken the vaccine. Nothing has happened to me. My brain is still working. Nothing. There's nothing gumming on my body or magnets. But you will even still see some people that you think should know better are still against this vaccine or vaccination. What can we do, about this vaccine hesitancy around people that should know? That's one. And number two, can the government really enforce? If somebody doesn't want to take vaccine, is it by force? But if you don't want to take vaccine,
I don't can enforce full vaccine.
But if you don't want to take vaccine, don't harm others that perhaps have taken it, or don't be a source of harm or a source of disease to other people.
Well, I doubt if government will be able to do that fully. Government can only do that within the sector, talking about civil service, and even doing that, you must not go too far. Recall what is happening currently in Edo State, and now even labor are taking this, even though you might want to say organized or unorganized labor are taking it. But I strongly believe that moral suasion for those that are sitting on the fence, that are neither for nor against, government may look at the advantages of these people, and they have more tests who can also champion on television, on radio, in newspaper. Government also needs to encourage those that are championing this conversation. This conspiracy for and against COVID and the vaccine is beyond, it's even before today and beyond COVID-19 itself. It has been around in the world for a long time.
Okay, so Paul, I think we'll leave it at that.
Is that what?
I think we'll leave, yes, I think we'll leave the discussion at that point. Thank you very much. We've got to go.
Thank you so very much, Father.
All right, I've been speaking with Paul Alaje, who is the lead economist and enterprise partner at SPM Professionals. That's how much we can take. Just like I said earlier, please do take a vaccine so that you can be protected and protect others. I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing. Be the best you can be and be the change you want to see. Bye now.